Today we are going to discuss the vermiform appendix, and we will study it under the heading of large intestine along with it, and you find it on the right side of the body in the right iliac fossa. It is supposed to absorb water and electrolytes along with the large intestine and forms this whole apparatus. They have to make the indigestible material into feces, and it is present basically as a blind ending tubular diverticulum of the cecum. You can see this is the cecum, and here you have seen the appendix. Now we have to learn a little bit about the positioning of the appendix. Clinically, it's important. You can see that the appendix is present near the ileocecal junction and is attached to the cecum. And first you observe it in a blue colored marking, that is it is present, and here it is occupying a positioning called as post-ileal. And if you put a clock over it, it represents 1 or 2 o'clock positioning. Then you observe in the green color as a appendix, which you can label as pre-ileal location, again near to the 2 o'clock position you can mention. And the pelvic position of the appendix is showing the 5 o'clock positioning. And if it is present subcecally, it will be representing the 6 o'clock positioning. And if you find it behind the cecum as a retrocecal, that could be 9 or 11 o'clock positioning. It would be representing like this. These positioning are important clinically. Why? Because it's very important when surgeon opens the abdomen in case of appendicectomy, when he has to do, so he may not forget if he finds this appendix in any of these positions. So if you have got a sound knowledge of anatomy, you will not miss this location. So now we are looking into the transverse section of the appendix. It's taken, and you can see that this appendix in its cross-sectional view would be showing all the 4 coatings of your digestive tube we have discussed earlier. Let me revise. The innermost lining or the placement of the coating, you would say, of the digestive tube is the mucosa. That includes the epithelium, the lamina propria, and muscularis mucosae may or may not be present. Then you can see that next layer to the mucosa is the submucosa. This is the placement of the submucosa. Then after that, the third layer you can mention is the muscularis externa, which is usually representing your thick muscular representation of the layers, like the inner circular and outer longitudinal around this tubular organs. But here in this appendix, you can see that it is forming a thin layer around the mucosa and submucosa. And finally, you are observing on its very outer side the serosal lining, the serosal covering. Now one by one we will be discussing that you can see its lumen, which is looking like a irregularly marginated structure, stellate in appearance, and but it is showing a complete lumen. Even on 4x you can observe the lumen of this appendix. And the mucosa, it would be showing the epithelium first. The epithelium definitely here is the simple columnar epithelium, and if I can enlarge it a little bit, you can see that there are small tubular glands called as simple tubular glands, which also are labeled as crepes of Labercahans. They are present but fewer in number. The mucosa is basically lined with the cells we call as the columnar cells, which are absorptive in nature, and few goblet cells are there which are supposed to secrete the mucus and perform the function of lubrication. Now you can concentrate about its after the lumen, that its lamina propria is marked with very larger size lymphatic nodules. But now again you have to concentrate on the lymphatic nodules which are present in its lamina propria, or you would say they arise in the lamina propria, and they are showing the germinal center, but they do not confine in the lamina propria. Rather, they are trying to enter into the submucosa, and because of their larger size, and in the submucosa you can observe the blood vessels. The adipose tissue is very much marked here, and all the structures around, you can find that so many lymphatic nodules all around. This is the hallmark of the appendix, through which you can easily learn about the appendix. Now what next in this vermiform appendix? That well laden, I have mentioned the fat cells are there in the submucosa, and after that you find the muscularis externa, which is thin but made up of, you would say, the inner circular layer, and this is the inner circular layer, and this one is the outer longitudinal layer all around as a rim of this vermiform appendix. And on its very outer side you find the serosa having the neurovascular bundle in it. And what's special about it, that in between the two layers of this muscularis externa, you can find the myenteric plexus, which is a part of enteric nervous system and present over here. So that was the detail of the vermiform appendix you have just learned now. Now another important thing in this written information, that we must know, appendix is present in your lower right abdomen. Function usually people say is not known, but one theory explains that its appendix, it has to act as a storehouse of your healthy or good organisms like bacteria, meant for the rebooting the digestive system after any diarrheal illness. One of the proof for this, that it carries or it acts as a policeman of your body, would be the presence of larger lymphatic nodules in its lamina propria extending towards your submucosa. So if you again concentrate another written lines, in your appendix we expect the complete lumen, but it is of irregular in shape, smoother, but as a whole smaller as compared to its thicker walls, and glands which are found are not very much deep, lesser in number, and they are spaced off farther apart present, and there is a space in between them, which is also you will observe here in the vermiform appendix. Muscularis externa definitely consists of inner circular and outer longitudinal, but as a whole is a thin layer. And the hallmark of the appendix is its larger lymphatic nodules, which originates or predominantly lies in the lamina propria and definitely extending into the submucosa. So that was all about the vermiform appendix. Here is another diagram for you. I'm showing you the histological section of this appendix, which you definitely will see in the lab. This is the mucosal part from the lumen. You can see having epithelium, then comes the lamina propria, and here you can find the larger size lymphatic nodules, definitely with the paler staining germinal centers, and they are trying to encroach the submucosa, and you can see it's well laden with the adipose tissue. Then comes the inner circular and outer longitudinal layers of that vermiform appendix. So that was about the details of the slide we have to learn in the lab of histology.